Welcome to actually, it's an old person, a new show. It's The Lion Roars with Phil Margo. And who is that cowboy that I see in the picture?
And that is still Margo.
That
That
is,
was me in front of my house in 2948 Brighton First Street in 1947. I was 4 or 5 years old.
uh,
And, right, and I was a cowboy guy. I loved cowboys, and that was my cowboy suit. My mom and dad bought me this cowboy suit.
who is your favorite cowboy?
Roy Rogers,
Roy Rogers.
yes, it was Roy Rogers. It was Hoppy. It was the Lone Ranger, and it was Gene Autry. I even
Uh,
wrote a song about them, in the last few years that we've performed, when we do shows, I performed it. It's called Hi-O Silver Away. And it was a kind of like a testimonial to those men who whatever their lives were like in real life, taught me lessons that stayed with me my whole life. The cowboy code and all of the things they did, treat women with respect, all of that stuff was all things that stay with me my whole life. From Hoppy, Gene Autry, the Lone Ranger, and Roy Rogers.
but now tell me, you'd rather kiss a horse than a woman.
The what?
You'd rather kiss your horse than a woman. That was always.
Well, no, they were no. That,
I know, I'm kidding.
I know, but I never bought into that. I mean, I used to, and also, what I didn't watch when I was a kid was the John Wayne two reelers. He made many, many westerns. Now, I'm not talking about the ones that he did in his later life. I'm talking about the ones that were done with Gabby Hayes in the 30s and early 40s.
By the way, turn on your light again. You turned it off to show the picture.
I can't make it brighter. Anyway,
Okay.
they represented a lot of my childhood. They were I learned from them, and I that bench that you saw me standing on in the picture, that was in front of my house on Brighton First Street. And my first memory as a kid was VJ Day, when the Japanese surrendered. And the reason why I remember it, and I remember that far back, I was only 3 years and 3 months old, which is about the limit that you could remember. I don't remember a lot of other stuff from that time, but I remember that our next door neighbor, we're having a big block party that night. So our next door neighbor, Bernie Eichenbaum was his name.
Good old Bernie Eichenbaum.
Yeah, took me downstairs to the basement of his house where he had all the party favors. And one of the party favors he had was a little red and yellow airplane it was plastic and it had a yellow propeller and it was red. And I never forgot that. And it was my first airplane. And of course, it interested me in airplanes, which was an interest that I had my whole life. And I flew and I owned a bunch of airplanes, and I learned how to fly a twin and fly instrument, and I even flew the Goodyear blimp and jets.
Wow.
I flew a jet fighter in a P-51 Mustang. Oh, I should bring you that picture too. I'll bring that picture.
Another show. We'll line up your pictures.
Yeah. Well, and so that was my beginning on Brighton First Street. I had a friend there, Eddie Stone, who is still my friend. We still talk to each other. He lives in Arizona now, and I had I had a wonderful childhood. I had the best time as a child. I lived 2 blocks from the Brighton beach, so during the summer, people had to come to my beach on the subway, and I let them on.
You were very possessive.
We would walk down Brighton First Street to Brighton Beach Avenue, and then straight through under the boardwalk, which you can't do anymore. Yeah. They filled up under the boardwalk. There used to be stores under the boardwalk. Under the boardwalk was a real song. It really was under the boardwalk. At night, people used to go there and make love. That's probably why they eventually
Yeah.
stopped it. But
Well,
anyway,
there's a lot of mugging there also, eventually.
no, I don't think there was at that time.
No, not at that time.
No, I mean, it was more, in certain ways it was more civil. But anyway, and one of the things about my childhood that I remember, I mean, growing up in Brighton Beach was the greatest thing. We had Nathan's, we had Mrs. Stoll's Knishes, we played on the street. We would, during the summers, we would, even during the winter, we would play in the street in the morning, like when we were off or when we didn't have school. And in the summer, every day, we would sweat up a storm, play punch ball, a stick ball, and we used the sewers as bases. And after we finished, we'd go to the beach and soak in the Atlantic Ocean. I mean, how better could life be? And
Did you ever go to that park? There was a park that they did a
Luna
documentary
Park,
on.
Luna
Yeah.
Park,
What?
Steeplechase.
No, 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 no. The park where the kids play
Steeplechase
basketball.
Park?
There was a park right off, I think, of Brighton 2nd Street or Brighton 3rd, or one of the streets.
Oh, that's where they will play basketball.
Right, and
Second
they
Street
have
Park.
and they
Yes,
have a documentary on that.
yes. We used to go to Seabreeze Park, which was up Ocean Parkway and around the bend towards Surf Avenue, where uh, where a lot of kids played. We used to play football, but we used to. Another thing we used to do is we used to go places when we were 9 and 10 years old. We used to take the bus and the subway. We used to go skating in Park Circle skating rink. We used to go to Dodger games. I'm talking about when I was like in fourth grade, fourth and fifth grade. I was doing this with a bunch of friends. We went to the Dodger game. If we had a bottle top from Borden's Milk and a quarter, you could get into the bleachers. So and if we had money for the subway, but a lot of times the subway guy would let us on, so we would use that money to buy a hot dog. I mean, it was great. I had the best childhood. I can't say I'm crazy because of my childhood. I had the best childhood, the best parents. My grandparents were wonderful. And I was exposed to things. Here's where I'm going to get into something real now. I mean, relevant. I was exposed to things because of my childhood. During my childhood, my father had a Victrola. We called it a Victrola.
I remember that.
Okay. And it played 78 RPM records. They were made out of graphite and they were very delicate. They were safer than the rolls from the old gramophones, but it was the next step. And my father had a relatively complete collection of records. And I used to, as a 4-year-old, they showed me how to do it. And as a 4-year-old, I guess, and nobody should be amazed because 4-year-olds now can work computers and work text and do that. So back then I was a 4-year-old that ran a record player, I understood.
You didn't scratch the surface of the records. That's what I remember.
You had to be
It's
careful. You had to
almost-
put them very gently.
Yeah.
I had an almost religious feeling about records because they amazed me. I mean, radio existed and you listened to radio, but you had no choice what they were playing. I mean, I used to listen to all the DJs from back then, listen to Lacey, people who would go back at that time.
Remember Martin Block and the Make Believe Ballroom.
Make Believe Ballroom night. It's Make Believe Ballroom time. Put all your cares away. I know. I used to listen to a lot of it. And I was fascinated by music because it was fun to listen to. And when I had the choice of playing what I wanted to play, because I had the record right there and I could play records, whatever I wanted, it was special, because I didn't have to listen to what they wanted to play. I could play what I wanted to play.
You were your own DJ.
Yeah. And yes, I was. And I also, and I never knew it at the time or realized it at the time, I used to listen to records, not just the record. I listened to the parts of the record. I listened to the different instruments and what they were playing against all the other instruments and how it worked so nicely, the arrangement, and how the vocalist was over the top of everything. And it fascinated me. And I thought everybody listened that way. It didn't, and I used to sing along with it in key. I used to sing harmony with it on my own. I would listen to the Andrews sisters and sing some of the harmony parts with them, and years later when I talked to Patty Andrews, I met Patty Andrews and I talked about it and she was fascinated,
Mhm.
He said that's what they did. They just stood in front of the mic and they balanced themselves around the mic, and when they got the right balance, they started singing,
They did it naturally.
Yeah, there was no, it was one mic for all three of them. And they moved in and out and adjusted themselves based on who was singing and who was doing a part. Patty was the lead mostly, but so, and she was she was wonderful, Patty. I enjoyed meeting her. I had kept in touch with her before she passed away. But and so I used to listen to all these records and I used to listen to deep into them, I didn't just listen to the surface sound. I listened to all of it. And and I was very musical, but no, but I didn't make a big deal out of it. Okay. And my parents knew that I was musical, but they didn't make a big deal out of it either, because I thought everybody could do that. Okay. So when I was in my junior year of high school, and in high school, I was very anonymous. I didn't care about grades. I did everything minimal just to get through. Like the perfect example of my high school student career is this. I got on the visual aid squad, that shows the films.
Yeah.
I got on the visual aid squad because I knew they showed the films of all the books we had to read. So I saw David Copperfield 20 times. Never read the book. I never did homework, hardly ever, any homework. I just made it up as I went along. And I didn't read any of the books. I didn't read any of them, but I saw the movie. And they always said it was 75% true to the book. In other words, the book was there, but they didn't have the whole book, and it was true. I got 75s. My grades were 75s. I had a 72.5 average when I graduated high school because I was able to stay within the 75 range. The lowest mark I got on a region was English. I got a 67. You had to have a 65 to pass. And then here's a guy who later in his life became a writer, and I couldn't even write. I didn't even know what grammar was. I mean, I couldn't remember where the period, when the comma went. I didn't know any of that stuff.
Well, I'll tell you, I had a good friend. This was, when I was working in advertising. She was a copywriter, and I asked her. I said, "Oh, did you study English?" She said, "No, I'm a high school dropout." I said, "Well, how come you're so good at copy?" She said, "Because I could write the way people speak."
Right.
May not be grammatically correct, and I don't know my adjective from adverb, but this is the way people speak, and I could write that down, and that's the way they record it.
It's very simple. Art and grammar are two different things. Art is art. If you're an inspired writer, you hear things in your head that sounds beautiful. Grammar you can fix. You can't. If you don't have the imagination to create ideas that are worth writing, then you can't be a writer. So, grammar doesn't make you a writer. Grammar makes you an editor.
Right.
So anyway, yes, I understand exactly that point, because I wasn't good at anything I did, really. I learned enough music when I got into the chorus. When I was in my junior year, the new music teacher, Miss Durakis, decided she wanted to start a boys' chorus. So she had every boy had to audition. If you didn't make it, it was okay. But if you didn't audition, she would fail you for the term. And if you didn't pass music, you couldn't graduate. That's how important music, those other subjects were that we don't talk about anymore in school, you had to have music appreciation a year of it at least to graduate high school. It was part of making you a rounded person, right? To me, it was a signpost because when I auditioned, the audition was, she played notes. She said, you just sing these notes. Don't think about it. Don't think about, just sing the notes. And I said, but I have a voice like a foghorn, you know? She said, don't worry about it. It'll blend in. I said, okay. So she did the notes. She played the notes and I sang them. Then she played more intricate notes and I sang them. Then she said, Philip, you have excellent pitch. And that was the first time any teacher ever said excellent and my name in the same sentence, you know? And so I got into the chorus. We did, and all of a sudden I was sitting there. I'll never forget this. The first song she gave us was Jesus, Joy of My Endeavor.
And that's nice for a nice Jewish boy.
And it was Jesus. It was in Latin yet. So I had to learn how to say Jesus and, you know, Jesu, whatever it was. Anyway, when I heard the harmony, it was thrilling to me. I mean, it made my ears vibrate, you know, when you hear the harmony, it does something to your ear that I just said, wow. And so I went into the chorus and we did our first concert and it worked out fine. And she asked for volunteers to entertain during the sock hop that was coming up in May, you know, the spring sock hop. And I volunteered my brother-in-law to sing the Everly Brothers song, All I Have to Do Is Dream, because it was 58. It was a hit that summer. That was when it was a hit. And so I got up on this little stage in the gym where the gym teacher used to stand up on this platform, which was about, I don't know, platform itself was about 5-6 feet high. You'd climb up on it with a ladder. And we sang All I Have to Do Is Dream, a cappella, you know, no instruments. We didn't play anything. And the audience cheered. And when we got down, girls started coming over to me and introducing themselves. And I said, gee, this is cool, you know? So I told my mom and dad, you know, they saw the concert too. I told them that I want to be a musician in the Catskill Mountains when I graduate high school. So my brother looks at me, he says, how can you be a musician? You don't play anything, you know? And Mitchell was very good at music too. He was more natural than me. So I said, well, maybe we can get a piano. So my father says, a piano costs $600. We can't afford a piano. And my mother looks at my father. She said, Leo, Philip gets a piano. That's what she said to him. Philip gets a piano. And they bought a piano for me. And I started taking lessons and I couldn't deal with it. I said, I need to learn how to play songs. I can't learn how to play notes. I need to play songs. And no teacher could teach me that because that system hadn't been invented yet. So I invented it. I invented the system where I learned by chords. I got a fake book, which were illegal back then. A fake book was a book of songs that were mimeoed by people, and they would charge you $10 or $15 for the book. There'd be 300 songs. I'll show you the fake book next time. 300 songs, both sides of the page, just had the chord symbol and the melody. That's all. It didn't have the left hand. It didn't. And I learned all the chords. I could play Lady as a Tramp in every key.
Yeah.
And I learned the songs. And within 2 months, I started a band. Well, actually, I got with these two guys that were starting a band, Barry Kahn and Mel Prezant, trumpet and sax. And they had a drummer. They got a hold of a drummer, Michael Gona. And we auditioned to get a gig in the Catskills, and we were accepted. So I got a job, and we were doing little gigs along the way. When the band started, we did Sweet 16s, we did little parties. You know, I played pianos that had half the keys broken. You know, and then we got a gig in the Catskills, and I worked in the Catskills for the summer of '59. I was I also had senior life savings. So for extra money, I was a lifeguard on the weekends, me at 120 pounds, but I had senior life savings on my patch. I had the card. I did it. I took it. I could schlep people out of the water. So I made an extra $25 a week. And I worked in the Catskills for the summer. And then I had a job in the fall on Wall Street, and I wanted to continue with the band, but the drummer's father won the lottery. So Mike went off to college, and we needed to find a new drummer. And the new drummer turned out to be a guy who later became very successful in the club date business. His name was Lenny, forgot his last name, it escapes me right now. But anyway, Lenny Budnick, it didn't escape me that much. Lenny Budnick, and he knew Hank Medress. And he introduced me to Hank Medress, who was involved with a group called Darrell and the Oxfords. And his manager was looking for talent to produce. And so my brother and I had this song that we wrote, Adolescence, and we were going to make a demo, and a Chopsticks. We had two things. We had Adolescence, and we had a rock and roll version of Chopsticks, and they paid to make a demo, and nothing happened. Nobody cared. But as we were walking out of the final appointment that said no, Hank said, "Do you guys ever write? Do you ever think of writing?" And we said, well, not really. I mean, not songs. We just played piano. And he said, well, why don't we write? And that was my beginning of getting into the record business. That's how that all happened. And we, that's the beginning. I just wanted to bring everybody up to snuff on what my childhood was like.
So basically, your career started not by accident, but just following what you were good at. You didn't really have gee, I'm going to be a singer, or I'm going to write songs. It just sort of like step by step, it came naturally to you.
The most perfect example is Forrest Gump's feather. Is life preset, or is it just a feather floating in the breeze? It was a feather. I mean, one day I was in school and the teacher said, audition. And I auditioned, and I got in the thing, and the feather came and said, "You want to sing at the sock hop?" And I sang at the sock hop. And then I said, "I need a piano." And my mother said, "I'll get a piano." But I couldn't learn a piano because I didn't have enough time. I wanted to go by 1959. It was already this spring it was already coming to be my senior year. And so then I decided to learn myself, and there was no reason for me to think I could. In other words, I didn't dive deep into it. I learned enough to be able to play in a band. That was it. I couldn't read music. I didn't learn how to read music till way later. I couldn't sightsee. I couldn't sightsee music. I needed the chord symbol.
But you heard it in your head.
I heard it in my head, and I needed the chord symbols. The chord symbol. I remember when we used to cut the shows, talent would come in every Saturday, and they'd bring all this sheet music, and I couldn't read the fucking stuff. I couldn't read that. But I would sneak back. I would have the guys make an excuse that I couldn't make the rehearsal, but I'd be fine. And I would get a hold of the music, and I would write the chords in, the chord symbol, F minor, F, because I couldn't read the chord musically in the left hand. It was too many notes. But if I write F minor, I could see it's in F minor, and I could do. So I wrote the chords down, and I was able to get away with playing for all. As a matter of fact, I got a lot of compliments saying that a lot of the talent who came in said, "Boy, those were great ad libs you played. Can you write them in for me?"
Yeah. Actually, it sounds like you were almost a jazz musician. Don't they do that?
We were playing pop songs. We were playing. I wasn't saying. I didn't know what jazz was. I just played. I played what I heard on the radio. I played Sweet and Gentle. I played, Cha Cha Chas. I played songs like that. Those were successful at the time. We used to play that. And as I said, Lady is a Tramp and Moon Glow and all of those songs. Moon Glow was the first song I learned how to play. Mm-hmm. Moonglow, page 52 in the fake book. Um, and I just, and anyway, so one day we started writing songs, and we put up, I think Hank put up some money and I put up some money, and we did a couple of demos, right? We did a demo like at Allegro Recording Studios in 1650 Broadway, very famous music building. And we did a demo, and we were trying to peddle it around. And Hank was coming back from the city with a copy of the demo. He had gone into, I was working, and he hasn't started working yet. So he went and as he's sitting on the BMT going home to Brighton, and this older woman says, "Is that a demo?" Because she could see he was holding it, because she knew, because her son was in the business, and he knew a guy named Bobby Madeira, and they said, "Well, let me hear it. I'll play it for them," and then that's how that started. Then we wound up getting a recording. They said, "Could you write some more songs?" And we did. And we wrote "Tonight I Fell in Love," which started out as a song called "It's Imagination." And then it became "Dum Dooby Dum, Tonight I Fell in Love." And that was our first record. We recorded it in 1960. It didn't get released until 1961, when I was already working a year on Wall Street. And I was at the point where they sent me down to help one of the partner's sons open a new office on 56th Street in Madison Avenue, right? And I didn't really want, I started out as just getting quotes, and then I got on the teletype and did transactions with the two offices down south. And then he asked me to, then Tony Marabella asked me to go to 56th Street. So I went there, and I found out that his son was an idiot. And he finally pushed me to one point. I said, "You're an idiot," to my boss, right? So he sends me back down to get fired. So Tony Marabella, his name was Eddie Marabella.
Yeah.
So he sends me back down to get fired, and Tony Marabella sits me down. He says, "You called my son an idiot?" I said, "Yes, I did." He said, "Why?" I said, "Because he's an idiot."
I wonder what happens when they listen to it today, if they're around.
I don't know. But anyway, he decided he wanted to send me to school, to finance school. Tony said, "I'm going to send you to finance school. You become a broker." And they put me on the American Stock Exchange wire. I was making trades from the American Stock Exchange.
Wow.
And I was good at it. I mean, but because that's mechanical, it's not hard. You know what to do. You send in the order, you do that. You didn't have to make up anything. Although I did change an order or two, and I could have gotten arrested for it. But it was a good, a guy wanted to do a trade that I said, "It's ridiculous. This stock is going down. Don't do this." And he said, "Who are you? Don't you just put in the order where I give it to you?" So I put it in as a sell short, I think, and the stock dropped like 5 or 10 points, and the next day he made thousands. So he let it go, and so I got a reputation in the office of that. I watch out for me, make sure I do the trade that they ask them, but pay attention to me if I have something to say, And then I quit, because we got with RCA. The "Tonight I Fell in Love" got on the charts and was a top 15 record.
How did it feel when you heard your music on the radio?
It was my father had a 1957 Oldsmobile, and I went in the car I was driving at that point. I was, let's see, 60, I was 18, 19, I was 19. I was not quite 19. And it was 1961, right. And it went on. We didn't even know we didn't know anything nothing was happening with it for the first few weeks when it came out. So we thought it was a dead issue. The promotion man at Warwick said it's nothing, nobody's happy. And then all of a sudden New York gets on it, right? And I go into the car to start the car and turn it on, and I hear the record on the radio. It's like,
Did you
you
record
say
it
that,
under the name of the Tokens?
yeah.
Your tokens already.
It was we when we made the deal to have the record released, then the guy at the label decided that he didn't want to release it because he didn't like the name. We wanted to use the name Those Guys because it was cool. You know, here they are, those guys.
Those guys from Brooklyn
But yeah, well,
and
no,
Brighton
just
Beach.
those guys. But just those guys. There
Yeah.
they are, those guys, those guys. And we thought it would be cool, but he didn't want to, and he wouldn't release the record unless we used the name The Tokens, which he had used because Neil Sedaka and The Tokens was on his label, Melba. So we said, okay, you know, because we wanted the record release. And so the record hit the charts, and we got an offer for a deal from RCA. And I was supposed to go down to sign the contracts, and I was in the stockbroker office, and I had to leave. And I said, you have to have someone else finish this up. And the head of the order room said, no, you can't. You have to finish it. I said, no, I have something important to do. Bye. And I
Okay,
left.
Phil, we're going to leave you there. Our half hour is up,
Okay.
but we'll be back. It sounds like a fascinating story.
Well, yes. I mean, yeah. Anybody can do something. You find what you love. See, the one thing I can say to leave you, I'm leaving you with this. I haven't had a job since I was 19.
Yeah. Well, what they say is if you find what you love, you never have to work a day in your life. Under
Right.
that note, we'll find out what happened after tonight, after the song.
Here's my picture. Oh, wait. Okay.
Okay,
This
you
is still
sign off
Margo
with your
saying
cat.
goodbye to you. Next week, I'll have a different picture.
You got it, kid. Bye.